Jack, have you had any clarification about tomorrow's game yet?
No.
No clarification yet?
No. Well, as far as I know, the game's on. I've not heard nothing to the contrary. So obviously we've trained this morning, and continues the preparations as normal.
And so you're expecting the game to be on then, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard nothing else to suggest it wouldn't be, but so we'll wait and see.
Are there still too many grey areas, Jack, with regards to situations like this when players test positive?
No, I think I spoke obviously a couple of weeks ago and I made a couple of points about probably being prepared for scenarios, and I think this is probably another one of them. And I think that once we have, and there might be clear guidelines for certain scenarios. I don't know, because I'm not the person that adjudicates or makes the rules or makes decisions. So, but I think in any walk of life, when you have clear parameters in place for certain situations, then everybody knows where they stand.
Does this ask all the players that 24 hours before a game there's no 100% definite you're going to be playing a game, that you have to ask them in terms of their focus and all that? Does it put extra strains on them?
I mean, we haven't even. We've not mentioned it. I'm sure players have spoken amongst themselves as they do, but we've not. Our pre-match meeting this morning wasn't brought up. Training wasn't brought up. It's not been brought up post-training from us because I said there's been nothing. Nobody's told me anything to the contrary. The game won't go ahead. So if that is the case, then we'll just deal with it then. But certainly for us, not it would be. We're a lot more professional, a lot better than that to allow anything to distract us in that way.
The suggestion is that it's two goalkeepers that St Mirren have had the test over. I mean, does this have to be treated? Do you have to, just look at these if there were injuries, and if these two goalkeepers were injured, then the game should go ahead? And you have to is that the way that coronavirus should be treated?
I think because this is obviously there is likelihood that this will become a more common occurrence. I think we said that in the back of Alex's a couple of weeks ago. And really that's what it is. It's losing a player through being unavailable, whether it be through a health issue or whether it be an injury, is commonplace through the course of a season, and there's plenty of times through a season where you have misfortune in that sense, and you can end up positionally being light in certain areas as well. So I think if we take a step back and look at it in a sporting perspective, from football perspective, in terms of losing players, then it is probably the same. Yeah.
Have you had any additional guidance so far from the SFA or the GRG about how to go ahead?
No, we got some correspondence on the back of me speaking post match, as I expected. Got quite a lot of answers to things that came post the game, which was fine. An explanation of things how it works, so taking that on board. I think it's maybe helped me understand some of the processes better. And I do think there are still going to be future occasions whereby I don't think we could always be prepared for them, wider society and in football. But I think the more things that we are prepared for and the more clearly the guidelines are set out, then it's obviously helpful for all.
Also, one of the cases, someone that's Jack Allen, he lives with Lee Hodgson, who plays for a different team. Would that be something you'd be happy with any of your players with, if you're trying to operate in a bubble and keep your team as tight as possible, allow one of your players to be sharing an accommodation with somebody from a rival team?
No, because the vast majority of our players and players around the country live with other people who I would imagine don't live in a bubble, whether it be wives and partners who work, whether it be children or older children that maybe work, or younger children at school and who mix with other groups. So it's I don't think there's any certainly no fear or worry from my part over who a player lives with. If they're operating within the guidelines that we all have to do as public, then I think things like that are just unfortunate.
It does look like, Jack, the chances of getting, although there's a couple of test events this weekend, the chance of getting fans into the grounds is not going to happen, on a major scale anyway, it's not going to happen for some considerable time. How will that impact on clubs, specifically in terms of funding?
Again, there'll be people more equipped or better equipped than me to answer the question specifically at the club, but I think the commitment that's been made by a number of Premiership club supporters and fan bases in terms of their commitment to season tickets has obviously helped clubs enormously. So I think they're probably prepared for worst case scenarios, if you like. With still the belief and optimism that hopefully that will change at some point in the future. I think the biggest thing for fans not being in the stadium, people point to the atmosphere and the intensity of the games, but I think we maybe overlook the fact that going to a football match is such a big part of people's lives in Scotland, irrespective of the level of the game, whether it be junior football, professional football, League 2, Premiership. Is such an important part of people's lives, and I think that's what I miss, speaking to people that love football, that they miss as well. And I think the sooner we get back to that, you know, the added bonus is that is revenue for clubs and atmosphere within stadiums. But I don't think we should forget that for a wider society, there's a big hole in a lot of people's lives right now, and it would be nice if we could get that back to them soon.
No, there was also a hope that from October onwards it could reduce the number of tests to clubs. At the moment it's still 2. We're going to have Championship, League 1 and League 2 clubs coming back who won't have to test unless they're actually playing against Premiership clubs. Is that fair?
I don't know, Brian, anymore. I don't. And do you know what? I'm reluctant to say too much because I thought I was quite fair and balanced with what I said a couple of weeks ago, and some people didn't feel as if it was. So I'll leave that answer for those that are perceived to be better equipped than me to answer it. There's a lot of things that are going on just now, not just in football but across wider society, that I struggle sometimes with when I take a step back from it. Maybe not a time or a place to voice my opinions on it.
How is Alex Gogic now?
Good. Yeah, he was back in with us and when we returned to training, because he had his 10-day of isolation, and obviously a period for him, I think, to go over the disappointment of also missing out and being called up for international duty. So the type of character and personality that Alex is, he was never going to really show any obvious signs of disappointment with that once he's been back in the group. I think he was just glad to get back to some sort of normality for him. In terms of health, was always asymptomatic, never had any issues from a health perspective, so nice to have him back in the group and back available.
The challenge for you is to get him to maintain the levels he's shown already this season, to make sure that when the next international call-up comes around, he's still in with a chance of getting in there.
Yeah, it's I think the thing when he takes a step back and gets over the initial disappointment, recognising that he was called up relatively quickly into this season, which was huge for him. And then, as you've said there, I think he clearly understands, and I think he's spoken to the Cypriot national team, and that's the indication he's been given, that if he continues in the form he's been in, then he'll be included in their next get together, which is terrific for him, and it gives him even greater incentive to continue in the manner he started the season, and hopefully the next time that comes around for him, he'll be able to fulfil that obligation to go and travel.
In terms of St Mirren, the game does go ahead. I mean, they've obviously made a point. I think Jim made a point of sort of trying to stiffen up his defence over the summer. Do you think they're a sort of tougher nut to crack than they were last year?
I think Jim is slowly but surely obviously tried to put his own stamp on his squad and on his team, and that takes a number of windows to do that. And I think he's tried to probably build particularly his defensive unit in the shape of one that's had experience in the Scottish Premiership and can deal with the challenges of it. And the one thing that he's also had, not just this or since the season resumed, but going back beyond that, is a really good home record. So I think when you put those two things together, we understand how difficult tomorrow's game will be. But for us, the break was good because it allowed us to take a deep breath and reflect on opening 6 games that on that reflection were very good for us.
Just on Alex again missing out, and then tomorrow Jack Hannock missing out for St Mirren. Does that have a psychological impact on Hibs a couple of weeks ago when Alex wasn't there, and it could have one tomorrow in St Mirren with the goalkeeper not there?
I think more just, Brian, just in terms of losing an important player in your group. You know, as I mentioned at the beginning, I think there will be more occurrences of this, and it's like, again, the question about is it similar to an injury? It could be the same as somebody picking up a hamstring strain in the Friday before a game, and it could happen to a player that isn't in your first 11 at the time and is on the fringes of things, or it could happen to one of your most important players. And for us, Alex had been a vital player for us, so losing him prior to that game was a blow. Jack has been a really important player for Jim this season. So if you like, although they're different positionally, the influence those players have had on the respective teams has probably been similar. So I think it's more just selfishly as a manager, you know, you're losing the ability to maybe pick what you feel is your strongest team in that game.
Kevin's back?
Yes, Kevin's back fit. He as planned. We always thought he would. I mean, he we possibly could have really pushed him for the Aberdeen game. I think it would be foolish if we had done, and he was back. He played in a bounce game last week and trained fully this week. So yeah, he's looked good and sharp, and nice to have him back available.
Any other team news?
We have Scott Allen will miss tomorrow. He's picked up a knock, so he'll be unavailable. And apart from that, we're at full strength. Yeah, Sean Mackey still. He had had a slight recurrence of an injury, so he missed a couple of his training, so not quite match fit. But everybody else is fit and healthy.
What is Scott's issue?
Just a knock, just a training ground knock. Yeah, so we hope that he won't be out for too long.